I stepped into the steel and glass lobby of Virion Tech with nothing but a fake smile and a mind buzzing with promises. This job was supposed to be my restart. A software development role, stable, decent pay, clean break from everything. My therapist told me I needed structure. What I needed was peace. The receptionist, a red-headed girl who looked barely 20, tapped my name into her system. "Ethan Cole?" she chirped. I nodded. "Great. You're on the 3rd floor. Management orientation first, then you'll meet your division head." I thanked her and rode the elevator alone. The moment the doors opened, I sensed it. You ever walk into a room and feel the air shift? Glass walls, polished desks, the smell of overbrewed coffee. The office had all the charm of a clinical lab. I followed a woman in a navy skirt suit to the boardroom. There she was, Madeline, hair tighter than I remembered, cold gray eyes that flicked toward me and then away like I was just another name on the list. She didn't flinch, not a single twitch. "Good morning," she said to the room. "I'm Madeline Grant, head of product strategy. Some of you I'll be working with directly." Her eyes skimmed me. Others, not so much. My jaw clenched. So this was the game. It had been almost 18 months since the divorce, since she walked out on our 6-year marriage with a smirk and a high-powered attorney. I hadn't seen her since court. Thought I never would again. The rest of the orientation was a blur of HR policies and sales charts. I barely registered any of it. Every time she spoke, I watched the faces of others. No one knew. Not yet. Afterward, I approached my new team's manager, a guy named Colton. He looked like he lived in the gym and vacationed in Dubai. "You'll be reporting directly under Miss Grant," he told me, grinning like he was handing me a gold ticket. "Great," I lied. That night, I sat alone in my rental, the silence pressing in like a weight. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Nice to see you, Ethan. Let's pretend we don't know each other. It'll be easier that way. M." I stared at the screen. No greeting, no explanation, just control, just like always. I knew what this was now. She wasn't just my boss. She was holding the knife, and this time she wanted to twist it slow. The next morning, I arrived 15 minutes early. I wanted control of something, anything. The open concept workspace buzzed with artificial light and ambition. Dozens of clean desks, monitors glowing, people talking in low tones over coffee. I picked a desk near the window and unpacked my laptop. I didn't want to be in the center of the action. I needed angles, escape routes, if this thing turned. Across the floor, Madeline stepped out of her glass office. She wore a fitted charcoal suit with black stilettos, her expression unreadable. Everyone quieted when she walked by. She stopped at my desk. "Ethan," she said. "With me. Now." No emotion, no welcome. I followed her into her office, closing the door behind me. She didn't sit. Neither did I. "You understand the rules," she said. "We don't talk about the past. Not here. Not ever." "I'm not the one who texted last night," I replied, keeping my voice level. Her eyes narrowed. "I wanted to be clear. If you think you can use what we had to gain leverage—" "Madeline," I cut in. "If I wanted leverage, I wouldn't have taken the damn job." A beat of silence. Then she smiled. Not warmth, but poison in silk. "You're still arrogant," she said. "But that's fine. You'll report directly to me, handle the Baxter account, and deliver weekly status updates. Any mistakes, I won't protect you. I'll bury you like anyone else." "Understood." She sat, dismissing me with a wave. I walked out, pulse hammering. Everyone was watching. By lunch, the office gossip machine was churning. A guy named Marcus, who sat one row over, leaned closer. "Man, you really pissed her off already," he said. "What makes you say that?" "She only uses that tone when she's ready to fire someone." I laughed, barely. Marcus was young but sharp. We clicked fast, maybe because I didn't try to impress anyone. He filled me in on company politics, who sucked up, who got mysteriously promoted, who disappeared after crossing Madeline. "She's brilliant," he said, "but she doesn't forgive or forget." I kept my head down the next few days, delivered early reports, stayed professional. I didn't speak to Madeline unless required, and even then, only in meetings, where her compliments were razor-thin and public criticisms cut deep. "She's tough on you," Marcus said one afternoon. more than the others. I shrugged. Maybe I just remind her of someone. Then came Thursday. Madeline called a department stand-up. Everyone gathered near her office as she presented the latest performance metrics. And finally, she said, flipping to the last slide, we have Ethan Cole, who managed to delay Baxter's progress by nearly 72 hours due to incomplete documentation. I blinked. What? I said aloud before I could stop myself. She looked at me coolly. Is that inaccurate? It is. The delay came from Baxter's side. I have the emails. She cut me off. We'll discuss it later. Silence. Colleagues looked away. Marcus gave me a sympathetic wince. The room broke apart in quiet tension. I marched back to my desk, fists clenched. The delay wasn't my fault. I had the paper trail, the approvals, the timestamps. She knew it. She had to know it. That night, I sat in my car in the parking garage long after dark, phone in hand, thumb hovering over her number. She wanted to humiliate me, gaslight me in front of the team, pretend I was the problem. No, not this time. Instead of calling, I opened my work inbox and forwarded the email thread to Colton, CCing Madeline. No comments, just the facts. The next morning, she said nothing. No apology, no correction, just a quiet, burning look when our eyes met in the hallway. That day, she assigned me a second account, twice the workload, half the support. The game had begun. I stopped expecting fairness. That illusion died the day she blamed me for Baxter's delay in front of the whole department. But this wasn't marriage anymore. This was war, and I'd learned to fight differently this time, quietly, patiently, with proof. Each day brought a new challenge. Tasks sent late at night with morning deadlines. Feedback delivered not in private, but with sharp-edged questions during meetings. Ethan, would you say this report reflects your best effort? Yes. I wouldn't. That was her style. Just enough venom to bruise, but never enough to bleed. Still, I delivered. I met the deadlines. I over-delivered when I could. Not for her, for me. Marcus noticed. You got a target on your back, he muttered one afternoon while we grabbed coffee. She's on your case harder than anyone I've seen. You think she knows I'm not afraid of her? I asked. He smirked. She probably hates that. We walked back to our desks, and for a second, I saw it. Madeline standing by the window of her office, arms crossed, watching us. She turned away before I could confirm it. The strange part was how normal she acted with everyone else, laughing with the senior leads, complimenting the interns, sending motivational emails to the team. She even had Colton fooled. She's hard, yeah, he told me one day, but she pushes for excellence. Don't take it personally, man. She rides me too. I wanted to laugh. Colton wasn't the one getting buried under late-night sabotage, but I didn't correct him. That was part of her brilliance. She only cut when no one was looking. That Friday, a surprise popped onto our calendars. Division Roundtable Q3 planning. Mandatory. The conference room was full by 3. Madeline stood at the front, all charm and gloss. Today, she wore a deep blue dress and a matching smile. Thank you for coming, she began, like a gracious hostess. Let's talk about where we're headed, and more importantly, how we get there together. The meeting was designed to build team spirit. People threw around buzzwords: agility, synergy, vertical integration. I stayed quiet. So did she, for most of it. Until near the end. I want to spotlight one contributor, Madeline said, scanning the table. Someone who's been pushing himself this month. Ethan. Heads turned. I tensed. I know I was hard on you last week, she continued. But your latest metrics show improvement. Keep that momentum going. A polite clap followed. I nodded once. Didn't smile. Because I knew what this was. A trap wrapped in praise. Public kindness to reset the image. After all, if she acknowledged me now, any complaints I raised later would sound like paranoia. Smart. I left the meeting with Marcus. Hey, that wasn't so bad, he said. Maybe she's easing up. She's not, I replied. She's tightening the leash. Later that night, I found myself walking past our old apartment building. 6 floors up, the lights were on in what used to be our living room. I hadn't planned to be there. It just happened. The memories hit like bricks. Nights we stayed up arguing about my career. Mornings she left without saying goodbye. The way her ambition swallowed the marriage whole, I'd loved her. Truly. But somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing me as her partner and started seeing me as her obstacle. She wanted more power, more control, and when I couldn't match her hunger, she left. I stayed a moment longer, then turned away. The past didn't belong to me anymore. The next week, Marcus handed me a file. "From finance," he said. "They want your analysis." I flipped through it and paused. A figure didn't add up. "Wait, these numbers don't match the source sheet." He shrugged. It came from Madeline. I spent the evening digging, comparing past reports. Something was off, not just a typo, a pattern. Repeated numbers, padded margins, minor shifts, but consistent. She was altering reports, or hiding something. And if I was handling those accounts now, it would all trace back to me. I closed my laptop and stared into the dark. This wasn't just a personal vendetta anymore. This was something else entirely. The next few days were quiet, unnaturally so. Madeline didn't call me out. She didn't assign me extra work. She didn't speak to me at all. That's how I knew something was wrong. I kept my head down, sifting through the Baxter and Lowell accounts. The numbers still didn't sit right. I'd printed 3 versions of the Q2 margins and marked them up with red pen. Subtle discrepancies, a bump in projected revenue here, a vanished expense there. Spread over weeks, no one would notice. Unless they were looking. I started looking. Each night, after hours, I stayed late and dug into archived financials. I didn't copy anything. Not yet. But I took notes, cross-referenced emails, built timelines. If she was cooking the books, I wanted more than hunches. Friday evening, long past everyone else's clock out, I sat alone in the dark office, scrolling through archived statements, when I heard a voice behind me. "You're either obsessed," it said, "or suicidal." I turned. It was Naomi, a senior operations analyst I'd only spoken to twice. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, even sharper reputation. She stepped into the light like she'd been watching me for a while. "Didn't mean to scare you," she said, leaning against a desk. "But you've been digging around in things that don't belong to your level." "What do you mean?" "I mean," she lowered her voice, "you're working for someone who doesn't tolerate people poking around where they shouldn't, especially not people with a history." I froze. "So you know," I said. Naomi nodded. "I remember when you two were married. I interned under her briefly. She made sure everyone knew who her husband was, and later, who he used to be." "Great. She's ruthless," Naomi added. "Always has been. But lately, she's scared." That caught me off guard. "Scared of what?" "You." I laughed bitterly. "She's the boss. I'm the grunt. What could she possibly be scared of?" Naomi walked over, picked up one of my printouts, and studied the markings. "This," she said, "this kind of curiosity. You're not just trying to survive. You're thinking about pushing back." "I'm just trying to protect myself." She lowered the sheet slowly. "Good. Just make sure you don't become a headline instead." And then she left. I didn't sleep that weekend. Not from fear, from calculation. Madeline hadn't said a word, but I knew she felt me closing in. She didn't need to confront me directly. That wasn't her style. She'd wait until the exact moment I stumbled, then cut me clean. The question wasn't if she'd move, it was when. Monday morning came with a new twist. Colton stopped by my desk, unannounced. "Madeline says she wants you to lead the quarterly presentation to the board," he said. I looked up. "What?" "She said you've been killing it lately. Thinks it's time you represented the team." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. He clapped me on the shoulder. "It's a good thing. Congrats, man." I nodded slowly, brain spinning. She was setting me up. I'd seen her use this tactic before, elevate someone just high enough to make the fall spectacular. She'd done it to a manager 2 years ago, praised him publicly, then sent a board member private reports about his unprofessional behavior. He was gone within a week. I needed to be smarter than him. I prepared my slides, triple-checked every number, every projection. Naomi quietly dropped by and slid a flash drive across my desk. "What's this?" I asked. Proof, she said, in case things go south. She didn't wait for thanks. Inside were 3 flagged reports, before and after versions showing Madeline's manipulations. No names, just metadata and timestamps. Enough to raise questions, enough to start a fire. The presentation went well. I stood in that sleek boardroom facing people in tailored suits and unreadable expressions, and I delivered clean, calm numbers. No theatrics, no stumbles. When I was done, I saw Madeline across the room. She was smiling, but not at me, at herself. She wasn't done yet. That night, I found an anonymous message waiting in my inbox. Don't trust her. She's done this before. And the last guy who pushed back? He didn't just lose his job. No sender, no trace. But I believed it. Monday morning felt different. The kind of different that makes your instincts sit up and whisper, something's coming. I walked into the office, eyes sharp. Madeline wasn't there yet. Marcus gave me a nod across the floor. Naomi wasn't in her usual corner. Everything looked the same. But it wasn't. Then she walked in. I didn't recognize her at first. She was new, definitely new. The kind of new that makes heads turn and conversations pause. Wavy auburn hair that bounced with each step. A tailored burgundy blouse tucked into a high-waisted skirt. Confident, but not loud. She moved like she belonged, even if she didn't yet. She made her way to the onboarding desk near mine, exchanged words with HR, then turned slightly and caught my eye. She smiled. It wasn't flirtatious, it was curious, and I hated that I smiled back. Her name was Claire Weston, transferred from the Chicago branch, product strategist, sharp background in marketing analytics, and apparently reporting to me on a shared project. Of course she was. Madeline didn't waste a second. Before lunch, I was called into her office. She's your responsibility, Madeline said coldly. She's green in our systems. Keep her productive. No distractions. I understand, I said. She seems sharp. Madeline leaned back in her chair, crossing one leg over the other. I know her type. Don't let her mistake kindness for opportunity. I frowned. Excuse me? She's ambitious. Don't get soft. The warning was unmistakable, but I kept my tone flat. You assigned her to me. Her lips curved into that familiar smile, the one that always meant war. Yes, she said. Let's see if you can handle pressure and temptation at the same time. I walked out of her office with my pulse pounding. She wasn't just watching me, she was provoking me. Claire was efficient, quick learner, attentive. But what set her apart was her presence, calm, grounded, almost too mature for someone in her position. She didn't gossip. She didn't push. She just worked. You've been here a while? She asked casually on our second day. Not long, I said. Feels longer. She laughed. Is that a compliment or a cry for help? I smirked. Little of both. We worked well together. She respected boundaries but wasn't afraid to challenge ideas. By Wednesday, she'd streamlined 2 workflows I'd been manually juggling for weeks. You saved me hours, I said. She tilted her head. Guess I'm earning my keep. She paused, then added, You know, I heard a few things before I got here, about the division head. I kept my tone neutral. People always talk. Claire glanced around. They said she's brilliant and dangerous. She's definitely both. Her eyes lingered on me for a second. You already knew that, didn't you? I didn't answer. Later that day, Naomi cornered me in the hallway. She's watching you, she said. Madeline? I asked. Naomi nodded. But not the usual way. She's waiting for you to slip. You and the new girl? Be careful. I hesitated. You think she's using Claire to bait me? Naomi didn't blink. Wouldn't be the first time. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not just Madeline's possessiveness, but the way she tried to weaponize proximity. She wasn't scared of exposure, not yet, but she was scared of something else. Me moving on. Me forming a connection with someone who might see through her act. I remembered the way Madeline used to shut down when I showed kindness to anyone else. Waitresses, co-workers, even friends. It was always the same fight. You're too available. People misunderstand you. No. What she meant was, I wasn't hers to command. And now, she was pulling every string to make sure I stayed under her thumb. Friday came with a surprise. Claire dropped a folder on my desk just before lunch. "I pulled the historical market analysis like you asked," she said. "But there's something weird." I flipped through the pages. She'd highlighted discrepancies in the reporting history. Minor variances, just like the ones I'd flagged. "This matches what I've been seeing," I said slowly. "Where did you pull this from?" She gave a half smile. "You asked for initiative, right?" I looked up at her. Something flickered in her expression. Caution? Curiosity? Or something else? "You sure no one saw you accessing this?" She shrugged. "Why?" I leaned back. "Let's just say our boss doesn't like shared curiosity." She gave a dry laugh. "Noted." But I felt it. The circle was getting tighter. Now Claire knew something she wasn't supposed to, and if Madeline found out. That night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Pretty girl. Be a shame if she vanished like the last one." I stared at the screen. Cold settled in my stomach. This wasn't a game anymore. The invitation arrived on Thursday morning, printed on thick cardstock and embossed with gold. Virion Q3 Company mixer cocktails, hors d'oeuvre, networking, required attendance. I stared at the RSVP like it was a landmine. These mixers were never just about socializing. They were power plays in disguise, ranked by eye contact, who stood near whom, who left together. I'd survived a few in the past, mostly by blending in and avoiding open warfare. But now I was walking into an event where my ex-wife ran the show, my coworker was being stalked by a ghost, and someone wanted to make sure I kept my distance. I wasn't sure who I was more worried about, Madeline or whoever was helping her behind the curtain. The venue was one of those rooftop lounges downtown. Glass railings, skyline views, too many mirrors. Everyone looked like they were trying to impress someone richer than them. Claire arrived 20 minutes after I did. She wore a deep green satin dress, not flashy but precise. She belonged in the room the moment she walked in. Madeline noticed her too. I saw it happen. From across the space, Madeline's expression didn't change, but the wine glass in her hand tilted slightly, just off balance. Claire joined me near the side balcony. "You clean up well." "You didn't tell me you were trying to get promoted tonight," I joked, nodding at her dress. She grinned. "It's just a dress. It's a warning shot." She laughed, and I swear, for a second, the noise in the room faded. I forgot where I was, forgot the war. That's when I felt it. A shadow over my shoulder. Madeline. "Claire," she said smoothly. "You look stunning." Claire straightened, suddenly formal. "Thank you, Miss Grant. This place is incredible." Madeline turned to me. "Ethan, a word?" I followed her to a quieter corner near the bar. She leaned in, voice soft but cold. "You're making a mistake." "With what? Talking to a colleague?" "With thinking I'll tolerate it." I kept my tone neutral. "Is that a threat?" She smiled like a blade. "Of course not. But it would be unfortunate if someone reported HR violations, especially between supervisors and their direct reports." "I haven't done anything inappropriate." "Doesn't matter," she said. "Perception is everything, and you know how fragile reputations can be." I stared at her, pulse thudding in my neck. She'd said it without saying it. She was ready to destroy me, again, if it meant keeping me alone. I returned to Claire, who raised an eyebrow. "She's not subtle, is she?" she said. "She never was." Claire hesitated. "You want to get out of here?" I froze. "That's not a good idea." Her face shifted. "Because she'd come after you?" "Because she'd come after you." Claire didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I don't care. I don't like being handled. And I really don't like being threatened by women in expensive heels." I cracked a smile despite myself. "You're brave." She shrugged. "Maybe, or just tired of pretending." We didn't leave, but we stepped further away from the center, talked in low voices, shared work stories, laughed once or twice, and Madeline watched, every second. Later, toward the end of the night, the CEO made his rounds. Madeline, ever the political chess master, attached herself to his side like a power accessory. Then, like it was choreographed, she called for attention. "I'd like to recognize someone tonight," she said, holding her wine with poise. Someone who's risen to the challenge, shown growth, and set an example in the face of difficult odds. I tensed. Claire squeezed my arm. "Ethan Cole," Madeline said with a smile that was pure poison. "You've come a long way." Applause followed. Light, polite, empty. Then she continued. "But let's also remember that growth must be earned, not gifted. And as we move forward, I expect integrity, discretion, and discipline from every member of this team, especially those in leadership." She held my gaze. Everyone heard it. Everyone knew. It wasn't a toast. It was a bullet. I didn't stay long after that. Neither did Claire. She walked beside me to the elevator in silence. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "She used you to get to me." Claire stopped. "I let her." "What?" She looked up at me. "I knew she was watching. I knew you were trying to protect me. But I wasn't going to let her dictate who I speak to or smile at." She stepped closer, not touching, just close. "I'm not afraid of her, Ethan." "You should be," I said. She nodded once. "Maybe, but not tonight." The elevator dinged. She stepped in. I didn't follow, not because I didn't want to, but because Madeline was already planning her next move, and I could feel it coming. Monday started like nothing had happened. The office buzzed with the usual half-hearted chatter. Lattes, deadlines, performance metrics. But I saw it in their eyes. Everyone had heard Madeline's little speech at the mixer. They all knew it was about me. The fake smiles, the pity in their glances, the whispered conversations when I passed. It was a new kind of isolation. Madeline had painted me with invisible ink, and everyone was too afraid to acknowledge the stains. Claire kept her distance that morning, not rudely, just carefully. Professional tone, minimal eye contact, and I didn't blame her. After that spectacle, she was likely already under the microscope. I respected her for showing up at all. Around 11, Naomi slid a folder onto my desk without a word. Inside were 2 flagged emails, messages forwarded from a third-party vendor. Someone had changed invoice timestamps. Sloppy digital footprints, but enough to question. Beneath the printouts was a yellow, sticky note. "You're not crazy, but you're not safe either." I slipped the files into my locked drawer. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was prey. That afternoon, Madeline called a floor-wide status meeting. Last minute, no agenda. The entire team gathered by the glass conference space. People standing shoulder to shoulder, unsure why they were there. I had a bad feeling before she even opened her mouth. "We've conducted a routine audit of our departmental communications," she began, flipping through a leather-bound folder, "and we've discovered a breach of internal confidentiality protocols." She paused, letting the tension settle like dust. A number of sensitive files were reviewed without formal clearance. Accesses were logged from a device tied to one of our own. Then she turned. Her eyes locked onto me. "Ethan, can you step forward, please?" My heart didn't just drop, it cratered. "I'm sorry?" I said. "You accessed archived financial data outside of authorized hours. Can you explain why?" I could feel the heat of every gaze in the room. "I was reviewing legacy projections for the Baxter presentation. Nothing confidential." She smiled slightly. "Those files were not part of your assigned purview, and given your role, you are expected to log any research involving restricted data." "That was never stated," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. Madeline tilted her head. "Would you prefer we escalate this to HR?" The silence was suffocating. I could hear my pulse in my ears. She wasn't just accusing me, she was staging an execution, and everyone was watching. "I didn't do anything wrong," I said, "and I'd be happy to review the access logs with IT." Her smile didn't move. "Noted. You may return to your desk." That was it. No resolution. Just poison in the air and mud on my name. Claire didn't look at me when I passed her. I didn't expect her to. Madeline had made her point. She could crush me whenever she wanted, and no one would stop her. I sat at my desk, hands shaking. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to despair. Not fear, not anger. Just the weight of knowing that the game wasn't rigged. It was already lost, unless I changed the rules. That evening, I waited until most of the team had cleared out. Naomi was still there, tapping quietly on her keyboard. I approached her, folder in hand. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. She looked up, tired but sharp. "Because I've seen what she does to people who stay quiet." "Have you been through it?" She didn't answer directly, but she didn't deny it either. "She's not just trying to fire you," Naomi said. "She's trying to erase you. If you don't act first, you'll be a ghost by next quarter." I hesitated. "I have some of the reports. I can prove she's been tampering with data." Naomi nodded. "It's not enough. You need corroboration, something that makes it impossible to cover up." "Like what?" "Testimony, chain of command, external vendor confirmation, the kind of stuff you can't fake with spreadsheets." She paused. Or what?" "You push her," I frowned. "Into doing what?" "Making a mistake, a real one she can't hide from." I leaned against the edge of the desk, rubbing my face. "You want me to provoke her?" Naomi didn't blink. "You want justice or survival?" When I left the building that night, a man was waiting by my car. Black jacket, nondescript face. Too casual to be security, too still to be innocent. I froze. "Can I help you?" He didn't smile. "Don't trust the girl," he said. My stomach dropped. "Claire?" He stepped closer. "You think she found those errors by accident?" I clenched my fists. "You work for Madeline?" He gave a thin smile. "I work for whoever wins." Then he turned and walked off into the night. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smirk, that cold, measured voice. "Would you prefer we escalate this to HR?" Madeline wasn't just trying to undermine me anymore. She wanted to erase me. Slowly, publicly. She wanted the others to doubt me, distance themselves, isolate me into silence. But I wasn't going quiet. The next morning I skipped the elevator and took the stairs. It wasn't about cardio. It was about clearing my head, reclaiming control, however small. When I reached my floor, Naomi was already at her desk, typing like the keyboard owed her money. She looked up just long enough to nod toward a flash drive sitting beneath a legal pad. I picked it up. "What's this?" Her voice was low. Something she buried, deep. I didn't ask how she got it, didn't want to know. I just nodded and slipped it into my pocket. At lunch, I drove out of the office and parked by an abandoned lot behind a diner. Neutral ground. No cameras. No eyes. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and waited. There were 2 files. One was a spreadsheet. The other was a video. I opened the spreadsheet first. At first glance, just another batch of quarterly financials. But the metadata told a different story. Dates didn't match the timestamp of submission. Numbers had been altered across different versions, sometimes inflated, sometimes reduced. But every time the final version submitted to the board favored Madeline's project budgets. This wasn't creative accounting. This was manipulation, systematic, precise, and intentional. I clicked on the video file. Grainy surveillance footage, off a security cam angle. I almost stopped breathing. Madeline, sitting in her office, handing a manila folder to a younger man I didn't recognize. He left. 5 minutes later, Madeline stood, walked over to the office shredder, and fed a stack of papers into it without hesitation. I checked the timestamp. Nearly 1 year ago, I'd heard rumors about a guy named Brandon, a junior analyst who got terminated with zero explanation and whose desk was cleaned out overnight. That must have been him. This was it. This was the proof she'd buried. The mistake she thought was forgotten. I returned to the office. I was colder now, calm in that eerie way you only get when you're standing in the eye of a storm. Claire intercepted me near the elevator. "You okay?" she asked. I studied her carefully. "You ever hear of someone named Brandon?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. Why?" I wanted to believe her. But that warning still echoed in my mind. "You think she found those errors by accident?" "Just checking something," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "Ethan, if you know something, you need to tell me. Don't keep me in the dark just because she's targeting me too." I nodded slowly. "It's not that. I'm just trying to figure out who's playing who." She didn't speak after that, just gave me a quiet look and walked off. I hated how much I wanted to chase her. That evening, Naomi and I met on the rooftop of the garage. She smoked, I didn't. But we both needed air. I saw the video, I said. She nodded once. She buried it for a reason. What happened to Brandon? Naomi exhaled smoke through her nose. Rumor is he caught something in the quarterly audits, went to compliance. 2 days later he was gone. They said he falsified reports. No one questioned it. I clenched the railing. I've got what we need now. Naomi shook her head. You've got something. But going to HR or legal now, you'll still look like a bitter ex with a vendetta. She's already painted you. So what do I do? She dropped her cigarette and crushed it under her heel. You hit her where it hurts. Publicly. Cleanly. You let her set the trap, and then turn it on her. How? She smiled. You give her exactly what she thinks she wants. The next day, Madeline summoned me. Her office. Curtains drawn. The air was still. I want you to present the revised Baxter forecast, she said, to the CFO, one-on-one. My blood went cold. The same project she'd cooked. The same numbers she'd doctored. You trust me with that? I asked. She gave a slow smile. Of course, I believe in second chances. I almost laughed. She was daring me to walk into that room with bad data. So I would. Just not the version she gave me. That night I sent a message to Claire. Simple. Careful. Be cautious tomorrow, something's shifting. She replied in under a minute. So am I. I woke up that morning with clarity I hadn't felt in months. Not peace, just precision. Madeline thought she was handing me a bomb. What she didn't know was I'd already seen the wires, traced the circuit, and replaced the fuse. I arrived early, the kind of early that's strategic. I wanted her to see me in the office before she did, wanted her to wonder what I was doing. By the time she entered, eyes sweeping the room like a hawk surveying prey, I was already seated in the main conference room, finalizing my slides. Her heels clicked across the floor as she approached. I trust the presentation's in order? She asked smoothly. Yes, I said without looking up. It'll be clean, transparent. Her smile twitched. She didn't like that word. Good, she replied. Let's keep the narrative focused. No surprises. Wouldn't dream of it. She lingered a moment longer, then left. I finished my edits, uploaded the approved version to the shared drive, and placed a separate version on a secure USB in my inner jacket pocket. The real one, the one with accurate, untouched data and annotations pointing out the discrepancies she had buried for months. It was almost poetic. She was sending me in as her pawn, but I was already walking like a king. The meeting with the CFO was set for 10. I entered the glass conference room on the executive floor like I belonged there. The CFO, Lyle Kinsey, was sharp, composed, but never in a rush. He offered a handshake and a polite smile. Let's see what your division's cooking, he said. I pulled up the corporate presentation, Madeline's version, and began to speak. Quarterly performance, growth trends, forward projections. Lyle listened but didn't respond much. Then I paused. There's one slide I'd like to clarify, I said, something I noticed while cross-referencing historical data. His eyes lifted. I switched inputs, inserted the USB, opened the real file. This version reflects the accurate datasets, unmodified, I said. What was submitted to finance last quarter differs from internal versions kept on the project server. Lyle's expression didn't shift, but his fingers steepled. Go on. I walked him through it, point by point. Subtle differences in invoices, expense timing, altered estimates. I didn't accuse, I demonstrated. The room was silent when I finished. Who submitted the altered reports? He asked. Officially, I said, Madeline Grant, but if necessary, I can show the metadata chain. I let that sit for a beat. Then I added, there's also video footage. I can share it with you, privately. He stared at me for a long moment, then leaned back. Thank you, Ethan. That'll be all for now. I left the room with sweat running down my spine. I'd done it, and now the pieces would start moving. Back in my department, Madeline was waiting. You're early, she said. So are you, I replied. Her eyes narrowed slightly. How did it go? Professional, I said. Lyle asked a few clarifying questions. Nothing unusual. She studied me like a predator watching a mouse behave too calmly. For the first time in weeks, I didn't flinch. "Let's talk later," she said, then turned on her heel and walked away. She didn't know yet, but she would. That afternoon, Naomi sent me a message through our secure channel. "You just made noise in a room where whispers matter. Prepare for fallout." She wasn't wrong. By 4, I'd been randomly selected for a follow-up HR review. At 5, someone from IT requested access to my workstation for a system audit. By 6, Claire had disappeared from her desk. I called her, no answer. I messaged. Nothing. Then a single reply arrived. They pulled me into a closed door, said I was under review. For what? My chest tightened. She was the next piece on Madeline's board, and I'd just moved her into the line of fire. At home that night, I poured a glass of whiskey and stared at the screen. Rewatched the Brandon video. I froze at mid-frame. His face, that nervous posture. He had known too, just like I did. He'd gone to someone with it, and vanished. No investigation, no complaints, just a quiet erasure. I wasn't going out that way. I copied the file and sent it to 3 different secure locations. 1 to Naomi, 1 to a trusted friend outside the company, 1 to a lawyer I'd spoken to once, years ago, during the divorce. If anything happened to me, I wanted it out. I was done hiding, done surviving. Now, I was hunting. The email came at 8:02 a.m. sharp. Subject: Immediate HR compliance review, mandatory attendance. From corporate legal to Ethan Cole. The meeting was scheduled for 10 minutes later. No explanation, no agenda. I closed my inbox and stood slowly. It had begun. The walk to the legal floor felt like approaching a courtroom without counsel. Everyone in the office felt it. Eyes followed me, unsure whether to pity me or distance themselves further. Some looked away. Marcus actually stood when I passed. Whether out of guilt or confusion, I didn't know. When I entered the room, 3 people were waiting. Angela Worth, from legal. Colton, my manager, sitting stiff with his hands folded. And 1 unfamiliar man with glasses and an expression like wet cement. They didn't greet me. Angela gestured. "Have a seat, Mr. Cole." I sat. "We've received a report of unauthorized data transfers from your work machine," she said. "Files not part of any assigned project, some with flagged metadata. Can you explain that?" My jaw locked. I accessed files for a presentation requested by my department head. "Miss Grant," Colton added quickly. "You were under her direction?" "Yes," Angela continued. "The files in question were not from the current quarter. Some dated back 2 years. Can you clarify the relevance of accessing archived reports and internal audit documents?" I met her gaze. "To verify discrepancies." The man with glasses finally spoke. "Do you suspect financial misconduct?" "I have proof of it," I said evenly. Angela leaned forward. "Do you have reason to believe Miss Grant acted unethically?" I reached into my folder slowly. "I do," I said, "and I've already presented that evidence to the CFO." A beat passed. Angela nodded once. "This review will be paused pending executive investigation," she said. "But until that is complete, your access to project-level systems will be suspended. You are not to interact with any current strategic files or communicate with internal audit staff." Colton spoke again, voice tense. "You're being placed under restricted duty. Not terminated. Yet." I stood. "I understand." But inside, I was boiling. They were putting me in a cage, cutting off my access, my people, my proof. Madeline wasn't waiting for legal to play its part. She was moving faster. Claire didn't return my messages. I found out later from Naomi. She'd been temporarily reassigned to training at a different location. Code for removed from the board. She was still on payroll, still technically part of the company, but she was out of reach and isolated, just like Brandon had been. By Wednesday, my workday consisted of checking old spreadsheets and waiting for updates I wasn't allowed to receive. I'd become a ghost in my own division. Madeline, untouched. She walked the halls like nothing had happened, greeted execs, hosted meetings, and each time I saw her, she made sure I saw her smile. But I wasn't done. That night, I met Naomi in a parking lot 2 blocks from the office. She wore a hoodie. I wore an old jacket. We looked like criminals, and maybe, in their world, we were. I need a way in, I told her. They've shut me out. She handed me a second flash drive. This one has the Brandon logs, she said. I pulled them from the backup server. His access records, his flagged reports, his alerts to internal compliance. You found them? She nodded. They were locked under a decommissioned staff ID, buried, but not erased. I stared at the drive in my palm. This proves he raised the same flags I did? Naomi's voice was calm. Weeks before he was fired. The next morning, I booked a meeting with Lyle Kinsey. Private, no email, no shared calendar. We met in a rented office space downtown. I showed him the logs, the video. Brandon's last flagged email forwarded to a now-deleted compliance account. Lyle didn't speak for a while. Then he said, I knew something felt off about the growth targets. He exhaled and leaned back. You realize if this goes public, the board will want to bury it before it touches stock price. I nodded, which is why I brought it to you, not HR, not internal audit. You. Lyle met my eyes. You want her removed? I want the truth on record, I said, and I want Claire protected. He was quiet again. Then he said, You have guts, Cole, but guts wouldn't be enough. This needed a push, so I gave him one last file. One Naomi had warned me not to use unless it came to this. An email from Madeline, dated 3 weeks after Brandon was terminated, requesting that the company's standard digital retention policy be overridden for efficiency. She'd ordered the deletion of files that would have exonerated him. Intentional, documented, damning. Lyle nodded slowly. This ends tomorrow. When I returned to the office, Madeline was waiting. In my chair, hands folded, legs crossed, like it was hers now. Can I help you? I asked. She stood, just saying goodbye. Going somewhere? She leaned in slightly, voice soft but venomous. You don't win this, Ethan. You just burn everything around you, and think that makes you clean. I didn't start the fire, I said. Her smile faded. You're not the only one with leverage. She walked out, heels echoing down the hallway. And for the first time, I believed her. Thursday, the day everything should have ended. Instead, it fractured. It started with a message from Lyle, short, uncharacteristically vague. Need to delay our decision. More developments. Hold position. I stared at it, rereading it over and over. Hold position? That wasn't the tone of a man about to bring down an executive. Something had changed, and I knew who had changed it. Madeline. By noon, the whispers started. People watching me from behind monitors, Slack messages dying mid-typing when I walked by. Even Marcus avoided eye contact. At 1:13 p.m., Colton called me into his office. I didn't sit. We've received a formal complaint, he said. From inside the team. Accusation of coercion, manipulation, psychological pressure. My pulse thudded. What team member? I asked. He sighed, then looked me straight in the eye. Claire Weston. For a full 3 seconds, I thought I misheard. Then the walls shifted. No, I said flatly. It was signed, dated, submitted this morning, he continued. She claims you repeatedly involved her in unauthorized audits, hinted at retaliation from leadership, and suggested that she would be targeted if she didn't comply. That's not true. She mentioned you warned her to avoid Madeline Grant, referred to her as dangerous. I swallowed. I had said that. I hadn't lied, but in this context, it sounded like a campaign, like a threat. She's lying, I said, but it came out hollow. Colton's eyes were sympathetic. HR will begin another review. It doesn't look good, Ethan, especially given the ongoing investigation. I left his office in a daze. Claire. Why? Was it real? Or was she coerced? Or worse? Was she always playing for Madeline? I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I tried Naomi. No answer. I sat at my desk and stared at the login screen I could no longer use. My world had gone from burning to silent. It was Naomi who found me that evening. In the parking garage again. She slid into the passenger seat of my car without a word. You saw the complaint, she said. Yes. And you believe it? No, I snapped. But I don't know what to believe anymore. Naomi was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I pulled the submission metadata from the HR server. I turned to her, waiting. It wasn't uploaded from Claire's laptop. It came from a desktop inside Madeline's office. My stomach turned. You're saying she forged it? No, Naomi said. I'm saying she submitted it. Claire may have said it, or she may never have had a choice. I gripped the steering wheel. She's using Claire to discredit me, just like she did with Brandon. Exactly. I shook my head. But why would Claire go along with it? Naomi exhaled. Maybe she was threatened. Maybe she was promised a promotion. Or maybe she's just not who you thought she was. That night I couldn't sleep. I opened every message Claire had ever sent me, reread every sentence, analyzed every emoji, and I couldn't tell anymore where it ended and where the manipulation began. Friday came with more news. Angela from legal scheduled another meeting. Only this time it wasn't about my access or my behavior. It was about my future. We're placing you on unpaid administrative leave pending further review, she said. You're not terminated, but we recommend you do not contact any current employees or access internal resources during this time. It was a polite exile, no badge, no inbox, no power. I walked out of that building for the last time, not with anger, but with something colder, resolve, because even if Claire betrayed me, even if Madeline was 5 moves ahead, I still had the files, still had the truth, and they were going to regret thinking they'd buried me. I sat on the floor of my apartment, laptop open, whiskey untouched beside me, and stared at the blinking cursor of a drafted email. To investigative@theledger.com. Subject: internal fraud, retaliation, and cover-up at Virion Technologies. It was all there: file attachments, videos, email threads, timestamps, Naomi's server extractions, Brandon's forgotten alerts, and a short, lethal cover letter outlining the timeline. The truth was heavy. It didn't roar. It waited. The only thing left was to press send. But even with the weight of justice in my hands, I hesitated. Not because I doubted what Madeline had done, but because of what would come after. This wasn't just her destruction, it was mine too. I closed the laptop. Instead, I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Hello? The voice was groggy, familiar. James Finley, I said. You still practicing? There was a pause. Ethan? The lawyer said. What the hell happened to you? By the time I arrived at his office the next morning, James had read everything. All of it. This is enough to get an SEC investigation, he said. Maybe even a federal inquiry if they've manipulated board-facing financials. They have. Multiple times? Yes. He tapped his pen on the desk. You realize you're risking everything by going public. I already lost everything, I said. He met my eyes. And Claire? I hesitated. I don't know. He nodded slowly. Let me make a few calls. But if you want to detonate this, we'll need more than just documents. Like what? Someone else. Someone who'll stand beside you. An insider. I exhaled. Naomi. Naomi was waiting in a back booth of a diner on the edge of the city. She looked tired. Paler than usual. You sure you want to do this? I asked. No, she said. But I'd rather do it than stay quiet and watch it happen again. I slid her a burner phone. Everything you've pulled needs to come from a clean channel. We give James one final drop, and then we cut ties. She nodded. And if she comes after you? Naomi smirked. Let her try. The next morning, the story broke. Tech executive accused of fraud, retaliation, and suppression of whistleblowers. The Ledger posted it at 6:42 a.m. By 7 o'clock. It was already trending on LinkedIn. By 9 o'clock, Virion's stock had dropped 11%. I watched it unfold from my phone. The storm had started. And then the phone rang. A number I hadn't seen in weeks. Claire. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the green button. I picked up. Ethan! Her voice cracked. What did you do? I told the truth. There was silence on the line. Then, I didn't file that complaint. She made me sign something. Said it was about internal compliance. I didn't know. It's done, I said. It's all public now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know how to help you. Then help me now, I said. Go on record. She hesitated. Claire, they'll try to spin this. Bury me under headlines and lawyers. But if you speak up, if you confirm what happened to you, to me, to Brandon, we can bury her instead." She inhaled sharply. "I'll call James." The line went dead. By noon, Virion had issued a vague press release about an internal restructuring due to compliance concerns. No mention of Madeline, no mention of me. But the message was clear. Damage control had begun, and then the real hit came. A leaked board memo, anonymous. Executive Vice President Madeline Grant placed on immediate leave pending third-party investigation. Allegations deemed credible enough to merit suspension of duties. I read the sentence twice. Then I closed my eyes. It wasn't justice. Not yet. But it was the first crack in the wall. That evening, Naomi called. They locked my system, terminated my access. "You knew that would happen." "I made a copy," she said. "It's out there now. No one can stop it." She paused. "And Claire?" "She's making a statement." Naomi laughed softly. Maybe there's hope for her after all. The sun was setting. I stepped out onto my balcony, phone still in hand. The city below looked the same, but I knew better. I wasn't the one who changed it. She did. Madeline built a kingdom on fear. I just tore out its foundation. There's a moment in every collapse where the structure still looks whole, where the glass still reflects light, the walls still stand. The name on the sign still means something. But the foundation? It's already gone. Madeline's world hadn't crumbled yet, but it was tilting, and everyone was starting to notice. That week, 2 more articles surfaced. One chronicled Brandon's unexplained termination, linking it with internal documents I'd passed to the ledger. Another speculated on executive-level pressure tactics inside Virion, using anonymous quotes, some of which I knew came from Naomi. The board held a closed-door meeting on Thursday. Madeline didn't attend, but the company still hadn't fired her. They were waiting, buying time, probably scrambling for a clean exit, one that wouldn't taint the stock, wouldn't draw in the SEC, wouldn't trigger a class action lawsuit from shareholders. They wanted to quietly retire the woman who nearly poisoned the company's core. But Madeline? She wasn't going quietly. On Friday, I got a call from James. "She's threatening countersuit," he said. "For what?" I asked. "Defamation, career sabotage. Claims you were the abusive one, that you used your personal relationship with her to get inside access, then weaponized it out of bitterness." I sat back on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. She really filed it? She's trying to, but no court will touch it until the investigation ends. Still, it'll muddy the waters. Her legal team just wants to stall the collapse. James paused. "She's going to fight, Ethan." "Then so will I." Later that day, Naomi sent me a screenshot of a leaked Slack message thread, an internal group of mid-level staff venting frustrations about toxic leadership and executive protection. Her message was short. "The tide's turning, you're not alone anymore." But even as allies surfaced, I couldn't ignore what was missing. Claire. She hadn't gone public yet. James said she was scared. She was still technically under contract, still bound by NDAs and silence clauses. And I didn't blame her, but I needed her. I drove to her apartment on Saturday afternoon. I didn't text ahead, just showed up and knocked. She opened the door slowly, eyes puffy, dressed in sweats. "Ethan," she said, voice low. "Can I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. The place was quiet, neat, but there was a suitcase by the couch. "You leaving?" "I don't know," she said. "HR told me I was being reassigned, then legal called and told me not to speak to press. I don't even know where I stand." "You're standing here," I said. "You're free, Claire. They have no right to silence you." "Not anymore." She turned to face me fully. "You don't know what they told me when they made me sign those papers." "Then tell someone else," I said. "Tell the public. Go on the record." "I'm scared," she admitted. "I was too," I said. "But being scared isn't the same as being powerless." She looked down, then met my eyes again. "You really think they'll fire her?" "They already have," I said. "They just don't know it yet." She nodded slowly. "I'll call James." That night, her statement ran as a follow-up. I was manipulated, intimidated, and silenced. What happened to Ethan Cole wasn't just retaliation, it was calculated. Claire Weston. She didn't name Madeline directly, but the context was clear. Monday morning, Virion issued a second release. No more vague phrasing, no more restructuring. Effective immediately, Madeline Grant is no longer affiliated with Virion Technologies. We are cooperating fully with regulatory inquiries. There it was. 3 sentences, a whole kingdom flattened. But what followed wasn't celebration. It was silence. Because after the storm, people don't clap. They assess damage. And in the ashes of Madeline's career, I still stood somewhere between martyr and suspect. No apology from the board, no reinstatement, no compensation. I wasn't their problem anymore. I was a symbol, a lesson. And in the corporate world, lessons get buried fast. James called again Tuesday. They're offering a settlement. I blinked. Excuse me? A non-disclosure agreement, sealed records, a quiet payout for wrongful leave and reputational harm. But it comes with terms. You never speak about this again. How much? Mid-6 figures. I paused. Then I laughed. I'm not taking their money. Are you sure? James said. You're not going to get a letter of recommendation. They're not inviting you back. This might be the last thing they ever give you. I didn't do this for a check. James sighed. Then what do you want? I looked out the window. I want her to watch me rebuild, from nothing, without her. I want her to see I didn't need her power, or her pity. Silence followed. Then James said, then start building. It came in the form of a forwarded email from James. Subject, coffee, from m.grant@personalmail.com, to James Finley. Just a single sentence below. If Ethan wants a real ending, he knows where to find me. I stared at the screen for several minutes. James called a few minutes later. You don't have to go, he said. It's not wise. You've already won. I didn't win, I said. She just lost louder. He sighed. Then go with your eyes open. We met at a quiet cafe in the corner of the city, one of those upscale places with neutral walls and overpriced croissants. She was already there when I arrived, dressed in black. Not corporate black, elegant black. Like a widow in mourning for a life she thought she controlled. I didn't sit right away. She didn't look surprised. Ethan, Madeline. She gestured to the seat across from her. Please. I took it, slowly, like I was walking into a minefield. We sat in silence for a beat. Then she said, You look tired. You look unemployed, I replied. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Still the sharp tongue. I folded my arms. You called this meeting. Let's skip the polite poison. Her smile faded. I didn't expect you to actually do it, she said. What? Tell the truth? Burn everything. You lit the match, I said. I just stopped pretending it was cold. She leaned back in her seat, watching me. You always needed an enemy to be strong. You always needed control to feel loved. Her face flinched, just a flicker. But it was there. I pressed. You didn't just try to erase me professionally. You used Claire. You destroyed Brandon. You built your entire empire on fear and silence. And you expected no one would ever look behind the curtain. I built that division, she hissed. I made it successful. No, I said. You made it yours, at any cost. She went quiet. For the first time in years, Madeline Grant didn't have a comeback. I stared at her. This woman I once loved, this woman who had stood beside me at an altar, kissed me like a promise, and then turned my entire life into a chessboard. Why? I asked finally. She looked out the window. Because I was scared, she said. Scared you'd outgrow me. Scared I'd fade. Scared you'd become the one people listened to, not me. I blinked. You tried to destroy me because you were afraid of me? She didn't look back. I saw your potential. It was always bigger than mine, and I hated it. That silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of every lie, every fight. Every night she looked at me like a rival, not a partner. I didn't come here for an apology, I said. Good, she whispered. Because I don't have one. I stood. You don't get to write the last page, I told her. Her eyes finally returned to mine. So what's your ending, Ethan? Fame? Vindication? Starting over? I shook my head. No, I said. Freedom. And I left her there, at the table, alone, exactly how she built her throne. That night, Claire came over. We didn't talk about the articles. We didn't talk about Madeline. We just sat on the balcony watching the skyline flicker like a city breathing. Do you regret it? She asked. Which part? Fighting back. I thought for a long time. No, I said. I regret not doing it sooner. A week later, Virion issued another internal memo. Independent audit completed. Multiple internal failures identified. Leadership restructuring to begin Q4. They didn't name me. They didn't name Madeline, but her legacy had been deleted. And mine? Mine was just beginning. The hardest part of survival isn't the fight. It's the quiet after. For the first few days, I woke up early, still expecting an email, a subpoena, a headline, but none came. The noise faded. The calls stopped. The world moved on, and I was still here. I rented a cabin 2 hours north. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just trees and sky and air that didn't smell like recycled ambition. I needed to know what my life felt like without her in it. Not just Madeline, but the version of me she helped create. The one who chased validation like oxygen, who feared silence because silence meant failure. Out here, silence didn't mean failure. It meant freedom. I spent the mornings running trails, the afternoons sketching out ideas in a notebook. Not business plans, not revenge plays, just ideas. I had no title, no company, no paycheck, and I'd never felt more like myself. Claire came up one weekend. She didn't ask if she was invited. She just arrived, bag in hand, hair pulled back, eyes softer than they'd ever been in the office. You look like a man who sleeps 8 hours, she said. I look like a man who has no reason to check his inbox, I replied. We didn't talk much that first night. We didn't need to. Sometimes recovery isn't about words. It's about someone else not needing you to prove you deserve to breathe. One morning, over coffee on the porch, she asked the question I'd been waiting for. What now? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I didn't know. Not yet. But I knew what it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be another climb up someone else's ladder. It wouldn't be silent compliance for a paycheck. It wouldn't be hiding behind ties and slogans and team-building sessions built on fear. Maybe I'd write. Maybe I'd speak. Maybe I'd build something small, honest, mine. For the first time in years, the future wasn't a punishment. It was a possibility. A letter came in the mail the next week. From Virion, a closing summary of internal investigations with a final, flat sentence. All allegations regarding misconduct by Ethan Cole are without merit. No apology, no rehire, just a quiet undoing of their lie. I folded the letter and burned it in the fire pit behind the cabin, not out of anger, out of ritual, out of finality. Naomi messaged me 2 months later, from abroad. New number, no trace. You were right to burn it down. Don't rebuild too high. People like us aren't meant for towers. I replied, then maybe we build something that doesn't need to scrape the sky. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Some people survive by disappearing, some by being seen. I had done both. One night, Claire and I sat watching the stars. She leaned against me. Her hand found mine, not possessive, not desperate, just steady. You know, she said, if you hadn't taken that job, we never would have met. If I hadn't taken that job, I said, I might still think silence was safer than truth. She smiled against my shoulder. I'm glad you didn't. I looked up. The sky was endless, no deadlines, no deliverables, just the kind of vastness you could get lost in and not be afraid. I didn't know what came next, but I knew who I was now. Not her subordinate, not her victim, not her casualty, just a man, alive, and finally, free.